Amarjeet Sada, 1998. Amarjeet Sada was 8 years old. He was born in Musahari, Bihar, to a family of laborers. He had no friends and spent most of his time alone. In 2006, his aunt left her young daughter in his care while the adults went to market. He lured the girl to a nearby field, strangled her, and battered her head with a rock. He confessed to his family. They buried the body and said nothing. A few months later, he strangled his 8-month-old sister. The family concealed that death too. His third victim was a 6-month-old girl named Khushbu, left sleeping at a village school. He carried her away. When police questioned him, he calmly told them where the body was. Officers described him as cheerful. He asked for biscuits before answering their questions. Psychologists found no sense of right or wrong. Indian law barred imprisonment for a child his age. He was sent to a juvenile facility until 18 and released in 2016 under a new identity. Whereabouts unknown. He is considered the youngest serial killer in recorded history. Mary Bell, 1968. Mary Bell was 11 years old. She was born in 1957 in Scotswood, Newcastle. Her mother told nurses to take the thing away from her the moment she was born. She later dropped her from a window, fed her sleeping pills, and sold her to a stranger. What happened inside that house, starting at age 4, was described by courts as among the worst child abuse ever documented in Britain. At school, she tried to strangle classmates and stubbed cigarettes on other children's cheeks. Teachers reported it. Nobody intervened. On May 25, 1968, the day before her 11th birthday, she strangled 4-year-old Martin Brown in a derelict house. Police ruled it an accident. 2 months later, she strangled 3-year-old Brian Howe on Wasteland, carved the letter M into his stomach, and mutilated his body with scissors. A detective watching Brian's funeral saw Mary standing outside as the coffin passed. She was laughing, rubbing her hands together. Convicted of manslaughter on grounds of diminished responsibility, she served 12 years and was released at 23 with a new name. She has a daughter and a granddaughter. Neither name has ever been disclosed. Robert Thompson and John Venables, 1993. Robert Thompson and John Venables were 10 years old. On February 12, 1993, they skipped school and spent the afternoon in a shopping center in Bootle, England. At 3:42 p.m., CCTV captured them, taking 2-year-old James Bulger by the hand and walking him out. His mother had let go for seconds at the butcher's counter. They walked James 2.5 miles across Liverpool. He was crying. They told anyone who asked he was their little brother. 38 people saw them. Almost nobody stopped them. At a railway line, they threw blue paint into his eyes, kicked and stomped on him, threw bricks at his body, forced batteries into his mouth, and dropped a 22-pound iron bar on his head. The pathologist counted 42 injuries. They placed his body on the tracks. A train severed him in 2. They served 8 years and were released at 18 with new identities and lifetime anonymity orders. Venables has been returned to prison twice since for possessing child abuse material. James Bulger was 2 years old. He held Venables' hand the entire walk. Brenda Spencer, 1979. Brenda Spencer was 16 years old. She lived with her father across from Grover Cleveland Elementary School in San Diego, sharing a single mattress on the floor. A psychiatrist had recommended she be admitted to a mental health facility. Her father refused. That Christmas she asked for a radio. He gave her a Ruger semi-automatic rifle with 500 rounds. She later said, "He bought the rifle so I would kill myself." On January 29, 1979, she sat by her window and opened fire on the school as children waited for the gates to open. She shot 8 of them. She killed Principal Burton Ragg when he ran outside. She killed custodian Mike Suker when he tried to drag Ragg to safety. 36 rounds in 15 minutes. A reporter calling nearby houses for witnesses reached Spencer. He asked if she could see the shooting. She said, "Who do you think's doing the shooting?" When he asked why, she said, "I don't like Mondays. This livens up the day." She surrendered after 7 hours, pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder, and was sentenced to 25 years to life. Denied parole 7 times. Still in prison. She is considered the first modern school shooter in American history. Eric Smith, 1993. Eric Smith was 13 years old. He had been bullied throughout school for his red hair, his large ears, and his glasses. On August 2, 1993, he cycled to a summer recreation program in Savona, New York. 4-year-old Derek Roby was walking to the same place alone for the first time. 1 block, no streets to cross. Smith lured him into a patch of woods, strangled him until he lost consciousness, dropped a rock on his head, and sodomized him with a stick. Then he opened Derek's lunchbox, took out a container of Kool-Aid, and poured it into the wounds. He removed the sneakers and placed them next to opposite hands. 4 days later, Smith walked into the police command center and offered to help find the killer. His family eventually confronted him. He said, "I'm sorry, Mom." At a parole hearing, he was asked if killing Derek had felt good. Denied parole 10 times. Released in 2022 after 28 years. Every August 2nd, Derek's parents still serve white ice cream with sprinkles. That is what Derek called vanilla. Joshua Phillips, 1998. Joshua Phillips was 14 years old. On November 3rd, 1998, 8-year-old Maddie Clifton walked across the street to play with him in Jacksonville, Florida. She never came home. Police searched for a week. Phillips joined the search. A sergeant entered his bedroom to question him. Phillips sat on his bed, petted his dog, and answered calmly. Maddie was under that bed the entire time. On November 10th, his mother noticed a wet stain on his floor, lifted the waterbed frame, and found her. Phillips said it began as an accident. They were playing baseball, and he hit her in the eye. She started bleeding and screaming. He panicked, not because she was hurt, but because his father was about to come home. His father was violent and had a strict rule: no children in the house, especially not girls. He dragged her inside, hit her with the bat to stop the screaming, and stuffed her under the bed. After his father went to sleep, he went back. Maddie was still alive. He lifted the mattress, cut her throat, and stabbed her 7 times. He went to school the next morning, and every morning for a week after that. Convicted of first-degree murder, sentenced to life without parole, still in prison. Lionel Tate, 1999. Lionel Tate was 12 years old. On July 28, 1999, he was left alone with 6-year-old Tiffany Unick in his family's living room in Broward County, Florida. His mother was upstairs. Professional wrestling was on television. 45 minutes later, he came upstairs and said Tiffany wasn't breathing. She had a fractured skull, a lacerated liver, a broken rib, a swollen brain, and bruising across her legs, feet, and neck. 35 separate injuries. Doctors compared the trauma to being struck by a car. Tate said he was imitating moves from television. The jury convicted him of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life without parole, the youngest person in modern American history to receive that sentence. The conviction was overturned in 2004 because his mental competency had never been evaluated before trial. He took a plea, time served, and 10 years probation. He walked free. 1 year later, he held up a pizza delivery driver at gunpoint, sentenced to 30 years. The judge said, "You've run out of chances." Christian Fernandez, 2011. Christian Fernandez was 12 years old. He was born in Miami to a mother who was herself 12. By age 2, he had been found wandering a motel parking lot at 3 a.m. By 8, he had been assaulted by a cousin. His stepfather beat him and killed himself before police could investigate. In March 2011, he was left alone in a Jacksonville apartment with his 2-year-old half-brother David. David was found unconscious with a fractured skull. His mother waited 8.5 hours before taking him to hospital, spending that time searching unconsciousness online and texting friends. David died 2 days later. Fernandez was charged with first-degree murder as an adult, the youngest person in Jacksonville history to face that charge. His interrogation statements were ruled inadmissible because the court found he had not understood his Miranda rights. He pleaded guilty to manslaughter, received juvenile sanctions, and was released on his 19th birthday. Medical experts testified David would likely have survived if his mother had called for help immediately. She was convicted of aggravated manslaughter.